UFC 326, Holloway versus Oliveira 2, going down on the 7th of March in the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. For this card, I'm not going to be doing the prelims or early prelims. I think they're kind of dead. I mean, some of these fighters I couldn't even give like good reviews on, to be honest. I'm going straight to the main card. Yeah, let's get started. Okay. First off, we've got a middleweight bout between Gregory Rodrigues and Bruno Ferreira. I think this fight is pretty close. Both of these guys are pretty explosive, pretty beefy boys for the division. They supposedly both have a jiu-jitsu background, but I only really see that in Ferreira. Rodrigues doesn't have any finishes by submission in the UFC, even though that might be his base in MMA. You know, I'll need to see it proven at a higher level before I can kind of say anything about that. This is a rematch. These guys have fought before. Ferreira won by a late first round KO. I think it was about 3 years ago. I think it was in the 2023. Ferreira is a little bit younger, slightly less experienced, but he's got a much cleaner record. I mean, I'll bring this up. So, yeah, these guys, both from Brazil, both with a jiu-jitsu background, although Ferreira seems to have proven that a little bit more. I believe he's 27, 28, and Rodrigues is about 34. I don't know why I thought he was younger than that. He's 33. A kind of short, stocky middleweight. A lot of power. Gone completely off the event. A lot of power. Same as Rodrigues. Perhaps Rodrigues is just enjoying punching people a lot and hasn't felt the need to submit people or go for submissions, but no submissions in the UFC. I believe he's been here a little bit longer than Ferreira. They do have one common opponent, as far as I know, in Petrosian. So, as you can see, Rodrigues lost by split decision to Petrosian, and Ferreira submitted him in round 2, I believe. So, kind of judging by their records, and obviously the fact that Ferreira won the last fight, and they're one common opponent, you'd think I'd go for Ferreira, but I don't know why, but I think Gregory's going to win this. I think the main thing that's making me lean towards Gregory, although obviously in a fight where, you know, considering what I've said, I'm not going to be that, you know, favourable for him, but I still think he's going to win. The reason is Bruno's last fight was against Marvin Vettori, and I think Marvin Vettori is shit. I wasn't expecting him to knock Marvin Vettori out, because Marvin Vettori potentially has the best chin ever in the UFC. I think he's been dropped a few times, but considering how hittable he is and the fact that he's fighting at middleweight where people, you know, they hit pretty damn hard, if anyone was going to knock him out clean, Bruno would be a pretty good contender, but I'm not expecting him to, because Marvin Vettori's made out of wood or something like that. I don't know. But Bruno obviously has some natural attributes. He's got natural power. And I think he's way more skillful than Marvin. So I don't think the fight should have been as close as it should have been. When I watched it, it was one of those fights where you're kind of like your face is in your hands, because Marvin could have made such small changes to win, and he just didn't do anything. And even considering that, Ferreira still couldn't finish him or kind of put a beating on him. Like, he won, but to be honest, I think Ferreira, like, he should have just made him a punching bag, to be honest. He should have owned him, and he didn't. He won, but it was not... I wanted more, essentially. And weirdly, I'd say I was more impressed by Gregory Rodrigues losing to Cannonier. Not the result, obviously, but the performance. He dropped Cannonier multiple times. I think Cannonier's harder to hit. He's a better boxer than Vettori. I'd say he's probably better at most things other than submissions. The main thing Gregory screwed up on was his pacing in a 25-minute fight. And he's now on a 2-fight win streak. I know Ferreira's on a 3-fight win streak. Guys, I'm not going to pretend this fight prediction is very logical. Like, it is the vibes. But I think once Rodrigues disciplines himself, and he might be doing that now because he's got two wins in a row. Once he disciplines himself, I think he's got more potential to go higher than Ferreira does. Rodrigues is an enormous middleweight. He's like 6'3", which is a pretty damn tall middleweight, other than Alex Pereira and like Ruzi Boyev, Israel Adesanya. There's not really been many middleweights bigger than that. I mean, 6'3" is pretty huge in this division. But he's not lanky at that height. He's big, fantastic power. And this is only a 3-rounder, so the worry of him gassing and then getting finished later on is not as present. I think this fight will be who has learnt the most recently, because again, these guys are kind of similar in that way, where they're both big hard hitters with a jiu-jitsu base, even though Rodrigues hasn't really shown that. Whoever is a bit less stupid, I think, will win this. Although I could see one of them just kind of going crazy at the start, really high output and just getting a knockout. Like Rodrigues did that against Cannonier and nearly finished him quite a few times. So, who's to say he can't do that against Ferreira? Who's to say Ferreira can't do that against him? He literally gassed after one round fighting Jared Cannonier, though. Like, even the second round, it kind of reminded me of, what was it? Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic, where Ngannou, as usual, expected to get an early knockout, didn't, and then he's literally plodding after the first round. That's what it reminded me of, the kind of the older, crafty vet, surviving the early storm from the young, hungry, hard-hitting fighter, and then starting to tee off on them in the later rounds. And obviously, in this case, Rodrigues actually got finished by Cannonier, I think, in round 4. I'm not making a very good case for why I think Rodrigues would win. It is kind of the vibes, but I just think he has a slightly higher ceiling than Ferreira, and Ferreira's most recent performance, even though it was a win, and I think probably the highest rank win either of these guys have had, either like rank opponent that they've beaten. I don't know how Marvin Vettori ever got to like rank 2. I mean, middleweight used to be such a desert when Israel was champ. And I think Gregory Rodrigues in a 3-rounder would obliterate Marvin Vettori in 2025, 2026. So I'm going to go with Rodrigues by a decision. I think Ferreira is pretty tough. I think Rodrigues will win 2 rounds, and then maybe Ferreira will win the last. I'm going to take Rodrigues' 2 recent performances as a sign of maturity, that he's not going to make a stupid mistake and gas. And obviously, once again, it's a 3-rounder, so he's got a little bit more leeway to go crazy. Yeah, that's about it. Next fight on the card, I'm going to go with Drew Dober because his opponent. Next fight on the card, Rob Font versus Raul Rosas Jr. And I'm going to go with Rob Font by a mid-second round TKO. Although I wouldn't be surprised if this was a first round TKO, to be honest. Raul Rosas Jr. has been doing really well, but this is a colossal step up in competition for him. I just want to bring up Raul Rosas Jr. record here. Please. There we go. Guys. Win. Lovely. He's only got 1 loss. These two guys, this guy is 4-4 in the UFC, and this guy is 3-8 in the UFC. Not his MMA record. His MMA record's a little bit better, but still not great. But these are not good fighters. To jump from these guys is his two most recent opponents, which he beat by decision, to any ranked fighter, I think is pretty crazy. I kind of view Rob Font a little bit like a bantamweight Dan Ige. He's someone that he won't beat the top levels of competition, but I don't really see him get dog walked by anyone, like even the high level guys. I mean, some of these losses, like, excuse me, he has a recent loss to Martinez, who's a young, hungry contender. I believe Martinez is on a 9-fight win streak. No shame in that. He's 38, which is very, like, that's pretty damn old for a bantamweight. I mean, before that, his last losses are against top guys, Sanhagen, Figueiredo, by decision. They're not finishing him. Decision to Vera, decision to Aldo. To even be hanging in with this many, like, occasionally you get a fighter that hangs in with one, and it's like a kind of an irregular thing, and then they go back to being mediocre. But this is consistent proof of being able to fight the top guys in the division. Some of these people are champions. Aldo's a champ. Figueiredo's a champ in a more skilled division, arguably. He also finished Moraes, and Moraes' record isn't very good, but he did give Marab a little bit of trouble, so, you got to give credit to that. This guy is, he's been here a long time, he's fought a lot of good guys, and this guy's nearly twice the age of Raul Rosas Jr. The experience level, I think, is too big. What I'm picturing in this fight is Raul Rosas Jr. Covering up, failing to defend from Rob's boxing. I think Rob's got good boxing, and I think he's going to start teeing off on him. I think Raul will probably survive the first round, mainly out of heart, and then the second one he's going to just kind of get crushed. I don't think he's going to give up, but this is too big of a skill gap. I don't think he's going to get a takedown on Rob. And even if he did, I would give him the edge in the grappling, but I don't think he would get a submission against a guy this high level, this early in his career. It's too early. Yeah, I've got Rob Font by a early round 2, mid round 2 TKO. I think he'll land a bit like a kind of Hernandez versus Strickland finish, where he's teeing off on him, he's getting beaten up, and then I think the ref will call it. Maybe he'll get dropped, or the ref will just say, enough. That's what I see happening in this fight. Moving on to the co-main event, Caio Borralho versus Reiner de Ridder. I'm going to go with Caio by a third round TKO. At first, when I was looking at this fight, I was really struggling, but I rewatched both of their two most recent fights, and I'm now fairly confident that Caio's going to win. It might be a decision, but I'm going to be bold and pick a finish. These two fighters are kind of similar in quite a few ways. They're sort of known for submissions. I'd say that's definitely more true of Reiner. But yeah, they're kind of people who've picked up stand-up a bit more recently, but their kind of base is jiu-jitsu. They're ranked 7 and 8, which is interesting. And they both have one loss. And for both of them, it's their most recent fight. So, strange parallels there. Yeah, so I rewatched both of their most recent fights. I thought Caio looked tougher than Reiner did. I thought his opponent was tougher than Reiner's was. I thought his opponent was more skillful. I thought his striking was faster than Reiner's was. Reiner. I'm just going to call him Reiner for this. And obviously he didn't quit. Yeah, this is one of those ones I kind of just use the eye test. I think Reiner is a slightly better grappler than Caio. I think he can loop up some cool submissions better than Caio, but the gap isn't big enough that I would be worried about a big submission threat for Caio. I'd be more worried for Reiner with the speed of Caio. I watched him fight Nasruddin again, and it was a lot closer than I remember on the feet, which basically the whole fight was on the feet. Caio kind of reminds me of like a giant Henry Cejudo. He kind of stands like quite upright, and he looks really exposed, but he somehow does well. It's not quite as bouncy as Henry, probably because he's a middleweight, but he looks like it shouldn't work, but then it works. He's still fast. I'm not saying he doesn't look quick. His punching technique's fine, but I think his head movement looks bad. But I think his speed and his power and his aggression is enough in this case. Most of the time. So, excuse me, I got a burp. I think Reiner is let's go on Reiner's. Come on. Yeah, the quitting against Allen, I think that's a big deal, man. He was getting hit a lot with a lot of ground and pound, but when I watched it, I could see that he had already given up the round before, and when he came into the fourth round, because he quitted on this stool at the end of the fourth, he basically just went in to kind of be a lamb to the slaughter for the last round. Obviously, this fight is not a 5-rounder, it's a 3-rounder, so, you know, that kind of deep waters battle maybe won't occur as much as in this fight. But even so, I think Caio's going to go in quite aggressive and is just going to kind of batter him. I think Reiner would have to be quite kind of sneaky to win this. Perhaps he can look good on the judges' scorecards with some submission attempts, throw up a triangle like he did against Allen. But in the striking, I think he's a lot slower. I think he's going to be like a kind of awkward lamppost that Caio just sort of tees off on. And a bit like I was saying earlier, Caio's striking was better than I thought it was. For some reason, when I remembered his fight against Nasruddin, who I rate very highly, I thought he was getting hit, and basically not he was throwing a lot back, but it wasn't landing. Now, it is true that his accuracy was a lot lower than Nasruddin Imavov's, but he still outstruck him on 2 different rounds, including the 5th, which is, I think it's always a good sign when you're outstriking someone late in a fight. I think that's a green flag. For kind of championship mentality, especially when you're contrasting it with Reiner de Ridder. I think this is a fight where if you put the kind of the heart of Reiner de Ridder in Caio and the heart of Caio in Reiner, then I'd bet on Reiner de Ridder. I think their attributes are pretty similar. I really like Reiner de Ridder's knee up the middle, but I don't think it's going to be enough to kind of scare Caio, and I think his boxing's going to go pretty crazy, and he's going to tee off on Reiner and beat him up. Reiner's got a few sneaky trips, but I imagine most of the grappling exchanges will probably similar to his fight with Brendan Allen earlier on. Earlier on with Brendan, he was winning them, but he couldn't really make too much progress. And then when he started to get tired, he started to wilt. You know, the fighters get sweaty. Then he started to give up. And that probably won't get to that stage if the fight's on the ground a lot. Just because it's only 3 rounds. But if it is, I think Caio's probably going to get back to his feet. Maybe he'll get stuck for a little bit. But I think he's good enough to defend from any terrible ground and pound or a sneaky submission. I don't think he's going to get caught by that. I think he's very competent in that area. So I think Reiner will either lose a decision where he probably loses every round, just gets outboxed. I think he's going to be up against the side of the cage quite a lot, getting teed off on, and just kind of awkwardly circling, trying to get away and make space. And then I think by the third round he's gonna get hit with something bad or cumulative damage, and then he's gonna collapse and get finished, and the ref will call it. And finally, onto the main event, Holloway versus Oliveira, the rematch. These guys first fought 11 years ago, or 10 and a half, in 2015. I've got Max Holloway by, I'm going to say, a round 3 TKO. I think that both of these guys are a little bit over the hill, but Charles more. Charles is very hittable now, and I think he's always been reasonably hittable. His defense has mainly been keeping people on the back foot because he's got aggressive Muay Thai, but his head movement has never been a big part of his game, and it isn't in Muay Thai. Muay Thai doesn't have loads of head movement. He's rangy and he keeps his hands up, which is good. But I think now at this stage where he's slowing down a little bit, it's not enough to avoid getting hit with pretty big shots. I could obviously mention that with Topuria, and it is true with Topuria, but even before that, like, he does get dropped a lot. Charles can just lie on his back when he gets rocked, as long as he doesn't get rocked too badly and he's still got his composure. But I don't think Max is foolish enough to go into his guard and, look for something. I don't know what he would try and get. Max Holloway's not known for big ground and pound, and I think he respects what Charles can do on the ground, so I don't think he's going to do anything like that. He'll probably just wait for the referee to stand Charles back up. Max Holloway did way better than Charles Oliveira did against Topuria. He looked very fast. He hit Topuria with a lot of clean shots. It was a very competitive fight. Charles went for a takedown on Topuria. Topuria reversed it and then put him in mounted crucifix. So even in Charles's area of expertise, he didn't look amazing. I wouldn't say he looked bad, but in the one area where you think, okay, maybe he can beat Topuria, that didn't happen. Whereas Max, I think, looked pretty much tit for tat against Topuria. Obviously, he did get knocked out, but I think it was round 4. He ended up losing. It was round 4. Round 3. Sorry, round 3. But he still looked good. Holloway, I wouldn't say he looks slower, but it's kind of difficult to say because now he's moved up a division. So I did think he looked slow against Poirier, but that might just be the extra weight. His chin is still very good in my opinion. Perhaps it got hurt a little bit by Ilia Topuria. That is his first proper knockout, or I wouldn't say proper, like his only knockout. He did get dropped by Gaethje, although I don't think they registered it as one, but he did get knocked down by him. Regardless, I'll need more proof before I could say that he's actually had like serious damage to his chin, like like when Tony Ferguson fought Justin Gaethje, and then after that was chinny. If I was comparing these fighters, just look at how they go on the feet against Justin Gaethje. Max Holloway just looks way safer, getting hit way less. He's moving faster. He doesn't get hit clean anywhere near as much. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that Max Holloway is better on the feet than Charles. And I think Charles's only hope to win would be a kind of Batman submission, or he gets into a clinch with Max Holloway and then pulls guard like he did against Arman Tsarukyan, something like that. Some sort of awkward scramble. But I certainly don't see him winning by decision. I think the only way he could ever win by decision is if he just somehow managed to clinch for 5 rounds, but that's not going to happen with Max Holloway. He's too experienced. He's going to be able to push off of the fence if he gets trapped. I'm sure Charles will get a little bit of control time after someone gets a trip or something like that, but in general, I'm seeing something kind of similar to Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway, but Charles Oliveira's chin is worse than Justin Gaethje's at this stage in the game. I think that the only thing that Charles Oliveira does the best he's ever done, even comparing to what I would consider his prime, which is when he was champion, is his wrestling. I think his offensive wrestling is better than it's ever been before. I was very impressed with his wrestling against Michael Chandler and also Mateusz Gamrot, who had very big, not big exchanges, what's the word? Competitive and back and forth exchanges in wrestling with Arman, and Arman's a great wrestler. I'd say the best at 155 now that Islam Makhachev's moved up. So yeah, I think he can out wrestle Max Holloway. I think he's a better submission artist than Max Holloway, obviously. I think this fight is kind of like where Charles has one big sort of trap, one big area. Max Holloway knows it. Everybody knows it. Is he stupid enough? Is he unskillful enough that he's gonna fall for something like that? I don't think so. I think Max actually hits decently hard at 155. I'd say probably above average. Partly his knockouts would come from, good boxing fundamentals. But I think he has reasonable power at 155. I don't think it's like underwhelming. Probably at 145 it is, but 155, I think it's okay. I think Charles is going to be a bit of a punching bag, and I think he will succumb to his injuries and is going to get finished in about the middle of the fight. I think he's probably going to get dropped once, maybe round 2, or maybe round 3. A few minutes earlier, a few moments earlier, get to his feet, not recover properly, and then Holloway will finish him with a big combination, and it will get called off. I don't see a knockout for Holloway, like a brutal KO, but a classic cumulative damage KO for Max Holloway. I think the most likely thing would be a mid to late finish by Holloway. Second most likely scenario would be a Calvin Kattar-esque decision for Holloway, and then I think the only way that Oliveira could win is if Holloway gets cocky, or Oliveira gets a nice trip, and then submits him, which I think is unlikely but possible. But I certainly don't think Charles Oliveira could win this fight by decision. Max Holloway is very good at long fights. He's got great cardio, great output. That's pretty much all I got to say on that. I don't give Charles no chance to win this fight, but I don't really rate his stand-up as much as a couple of years ago. I think he's slowed down quite a lot. I think he's got good knees in the clinch, good knees and elbows, and Max should be careful of that. But when things are open, I think Max is going to circle quite easily and just pick away at him with lots of straight shots. And then when he starts to get hurt, he can move in and start throwing more power punches and get a finish. Okay, guys, those were my predictions for UFC 326. I hope you enjoyed and have a good day.